What's up, my name is TechNoba here for Troubleshoot and welcome back to a brand new video. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to optimize Fortnite Chapter 3 for the best FPS possible, which will give you a competitive edge. This video is not going to get super in-depth into Windows or graphics card optimization, as that's usually repeated from video to video. Instead, you'll find those in the description down below in Windows 10, 11, and NVIDIA optimization guide form. On top of that, you'll find other related guides in the description down below that I'd highly recommend you check out if you haven't already. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and begin with some super basic Windows optimization. First of all, make sure you upgrade your graphics card drivers to the latest version possible, whether you download them and install them off of the internet or using something like NVIDIA GeForce Experience. It doesn't really matter. On top of that, also make sure that you're fully up to date in Windows. As for Windows 10 versus 11, that's really up to you. Don't bother upgrading to Windows 11 if you're on Windows 10 and you like how it works for you. Just make sure your Windows 10 is fully up to date in that case. Now for some more targeted optimizations, we simply need to navigate across to where Fortnite is installed. If you know where it is, great, simply head across there. Otherwise, you can open up a file browser with Start and E, locate the correct drive that the game is installed on, and then simply search for Fortnite. Eventually, you should see Fortnite Client as such over here. When you do eventually find these EXEs, you're going to want to locate the largest one, Fortnite Client Win64Shipping.exe, right-click this, and then click Properties. Inside of this new window here, head across to the Compatibility tab and make sure that Disable Fullscreen Optimizations is checked. Then click Change High DPI Settings over here, and inside of this window, tick this box at the very bottom, select Application, OK, Apply, and OK. When we're done with that, click at the very top up here where the text is, and we'll be copying the path of this folder as we'll be navigating back to this just now. Then hit Start and type in GPU, where we'll be clicking on Graphics Settings. Inside of here, make sure that Hardware Accelerated GPU Scheduling is turned on, and under Graphics Performance Preference, select Desktop App. Then click Browse, and inside of this new window that pops up, click at the very top, hit Ctrl-V to paste, and then hit Enter to navigate across to where Fortnite is. Inside of here, locate the biggest Fortnite Client EXE, this one over here, select it, and click Add. When you've done so, Fortnite will show up on the list. Click Options here, and make sure to choose High Performance, then Save. This is incredibly important if you're on a laptop with an iGPU or any multi-GPU setup. When we're done with that, you can simply hit Back in the top left, and then Home. Then we'll be heading into the Gaming section. Inside of here, on the Xbox Game Bar tab, make sure that this is turned off unless you specifically use Xbox Game Bar features. Then head across to the Game Mode tab and make sure that this is turned on. Of course, as you probably know, recording the game will cause you to drop some FPS. By default on some computers, the Game Bar actually captures your screen somewhat similarly to NVIDIA Shadowplay, and users may not know of it. All you need to do to solve this is hit Start, type in Game, and click on Xbox Game Bar. Inside of this window here, click the Settings wheel at the very top, and then choose Capturing from the list over here. Make sure that Record in the background while I'm playing a game is unchecked, and you can close out of this, then click anywhere to close it. Now we'll go ahead and clean out some temporary and cache files from our computer, freeing up some hard drive space, and of course giving the game more space to breathe. Hit Start and type in Clean, where we'll locate Disk Cleanup. Make sure to run this as administrator. When this window pops up, choose C drive, the one with Windows on it, and then click OK. Wait for it to run through to completion and find a bunch of temporary files that we can clean out of our PC, and when it's done, you'll see a list like such. All you have to do is select everything here, except for Recycle Bin, as you can manually go through this later so you don't permanently delete something you might want to keep, and the thumbnails down here. I work with images quite often, and having them all having to render in the thumbnails once again in Windows is usually something that takes a lot of time for no reason. So I leave these two unchecked over here, and everything else on this list I'm happy clearing out and deleting. Simply click OK when you're happy with the list, and then click Delete Files. Wait for this to run through to completion, and we should have saved ourselves quite a few gigabytes of hard drive space, especially if you've never done this before. Now, if your game's installed on a different hard drive, SSD, or anything like that, open up the Disk Cleaner once again as admin, and this time choose that other drive. Then select everything as we did previously, and clean that out as well. Now, as you probably know, your computer has a finite number of resources. It's always best to make sure that you have as few programs running as possible. Hold Ctrl-Shift and Escape to bring up the Windows Task Manager, and inside of here, on the Processes tab, you can sort by CPU, memory, disk, network, and GPU to find out what program is using what on your computer. Usually it'll be CPU, memory, and GPU you'll be focusing on. Try and close as many hungry applications as possible that you don't need running while you're playing the game, therefore giving the game more resources on your computer to use to give you a more competitive edge. Of course, if you're closing programs over and over again each time you start up your computer, you may want to head across to the Startup tab at the very top, sort by status, and everything listed as enabled will automatically start up when your computer boots. All you have to do is locate things you don't want starting with your computer, right-click, and then choose Disable. This way you'll have to manually start them later, and it won't slow down the boot process. Super simple. If you're an advanced user, you can head across to Services at the top, then click Open Services at the bottom, and inside of here, sort by startup type. Everything that's listed as automatic or automatic delayed start will start up when your computer logs in. All you have to do is locate services you don't want running in the background while you're playing the game, or you don't need, and simply double-click on them. Then choose Startup Type Manual. This way, you or a program will have to start up a service whenever they need to be running for the program to work. This way, less running equals more resources available for the game to take. Now that is of course really simple. Something that's often overlooked is something as simple as overlays. Anything that draws over a game will take away some performance. I personally find that the Discord overlay causes me to drop quite a few FPS and of course gain quite a bit of input latency. It's always worthwhile disabling third-party overlays and seeing if you gain anything from doing so. Usually you'll see a couple FPS, or at least input latency improving. If you're on a laptop or a notebook, try playing on an external display if you haven't already, as on some models, especially older ones, you'll find that you get much better performance when using an external display rather than the built-in one. Why? Well, the dedicated graphics card isn't going through your integrated graphics card in your CPU, etc., etc. Finally, before we hop into the in-game optimization, open up the Epic client, head across to Library, locate Fortnite, then click the three dots. In here, we'll click Options, and you'll see Fortnite installation options here. If you're not running the absolute latest graphics card, or you'd like a competitive edge with higher FPS, it's a good idea to uncheck high-resolution textures here. You'll also be saving yourself a whopping 20 gigabytes on your installation, practically halving it. But for now, I'll be leaving this on just to give you a baseline FPS count in the game. So let's fire it up and find out what kind of FPS I get. If you're looking for a simple place to benchmark your FPS, head into Creative. Then click Change, Create at the very top, and then Create. Then Play. There we go. So with a 1080 Ti at 2K, I'm getting a solid 50 FPS, and there's a little bit of input latency that I can see while looking around. Quickly poking my head into the settings menu, you'll see I'm running everything at Epic, which is the default detected for my computer. So we're going to go from 50 FPS and get as high as possible. Of course, this isn't an accurate representation of gameplay, but it's as good as you're going to get without actually hopping into a game. I'll quickly go ahead and uninstall the HD textures. And now that we're back in game, things look almost exactly the same, and I'm getting about 54-ish FPS, which is a little bit higher than before. Something that you should definitely notice is that there's less GPU memory used. Though of course this really depends on what kind of graphics card you're running, and on newer graphics cards, if you do like the higher resolution textures or you play at 4K, it's something that you may want to keep installed. Anything lower than 4K or maybe 2K, you really don't need the high resolution textures unless you're staring at things really close up. Now let's get into the actual optimization. I'll hit Escape and then Settings in the bottom left, then Settings up here. Starting at the very top, window mode should always be set to full screen, and the resolution over here should match your display, or it should be a resolution that's supported by your display. For me, oddly, this is only giving me one option here, but for you, there should be more. Frame rate limit should be set to unlimited, all the way to the right if you'd like the highest FPS possible. If you find that your graphics card is maxing out and you're someone like a streamer, or you're trying to record the game with something like OBS and your stream or recording ends up all stuttery, you may want to set the frame rate cap to just below what FPS you're getting in game, leaving some of your graphics card for OBS and other programs to use. Most people will leave this on unlimited for a competitive edge. Scrolling down, brightness is user preference, so is user interface contrast, colorblind mode, and colorblind strength, so I'll be skipping over these. Graphics quality over here, the auto set button can be ignored. Starting on quality presets, Epic is definitely overkill, and high is where you'd want to set it if you'd like a really good looking game. with good FPS. Usually you'd only really want to drop anti-aliasing down to medium or off, effects down to medium or low, and post-processing down to medium or low if you'd like a really good looking game that has okay performance, leaving 3D resolution at 100%. But if you're absolutely craving the highest possible performance, crank it all the way down to low and 3D resolution back to 100%. The reason we're not changing 3D resolution is setting this to anything other than 100 will result in your display looking blurry. Instead, you'll want to use something like NVIDIA NIS, which you'll find a guide for linked in the description down below. It's brand new technology like NVIDIA DLSS, which you can also enable in this game, but it's available for all NVIDIA graphics cards. You'll find DLSS at the very bottom over here if you have an RTX compatible graphics card in your computer. I don't, so that option's not here. View distance you'll want to have set to medium or far, depending on what your computer is, and shadows you'll be cranking to either off or medium, depending on whether you'd like to see shadows or not. Anti-aliasing you can comfortably leave on off unless you absolutely hate jagged edges, in which case set this to medium. Textures you can usually leave at low for the best possible FPS, but if you find the game looks too cartoony, you can crank this up to medium or even high depending on what kind of graphics card you have. This setting over here mainly relies on how much VRAM your graphics card has, though it can have a general performance hit for whatever you have this set to. I'll be leaving this on medium. Effects and post-processing you can both set down to low, as having these set to higher options will result in slightly lower FPS, or maybe just for effects, but both of these options here will hinder how you see in-game. Things will be harder to see, especially at distances, when there's certain effects and post-processing applied to your gameplay. Scrolling down to advanced graphics, VSync should always be set to off unless you're using G-Sync or you're experiencing screen tearing. Motion blur should be set to off for the best visibility possible. Show FPS is user preference, whether you'd like to see it or not. I'm using an external piece of software to check this while I'm benchmarking, and I'll usually have this off. Allow multi-threaded rendering should always be turned on, unless it causes problems for you. GPU crash debugging off, latency markers off, and NVIDIA reflex low latency here, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, should be turned to on or on plus boost, depending on what you like on your computer. I'll usually run it on just on. But for a competitive edge, you can leave this on boost, then simply click apply. Finally, we have rendering mode over here that you'll want to try playing around with later on when you're done with the optimization guide, as DirectX 12 can give you better performance, though it does lead to more crashes in some cases, and Performance Beta over here really cranks down a lot of the settings and changes how the game looks entirely to give you the best possible performance. What you have this setting set to over here is completely your preference, and I'd recommend at least trying Performance Beta and DirectX 12 mode and see what kind of FPS you get. I'll do all of these in just a moment, but for now I'll be leaving it on DirectX 11. After changing your graphics options, you will need to restart your game entirely. There we go, we're back in here, and as you can see, I'm getting a solid 150-ish FPS. It's hovering around them, and it's a hell of a lot better than it was previously. GPU memory has also dropped by about 1 GB, which is really good, especially on lower-end graphics cards. So at this current point, the game doesn't look too bad, though visual quality has changed quite a bit. This is DirectX 11 mode, and I'm hovering all the way between 120 and 150. That's already a really good improvement. But let's go ahead and see what DirectX 12 mode does, and of course the experimental performance mode. So escape, settings, settings, and I'll be setting it to DirectX 12 beta, apply, confirm, and I'll need to restart it. And I'm sitting at around 120 to 150 once again, if it's not a little bit more stable than it was before. So not really a huge difference here, but of course you will need to use DirectX 12 mode if you're going to be using something like RTX. However, do keep in mind, if you do use RTX, you're definitely going to be sacrificing a huge amount of performance. Now let's go ahead and try the performance mode. So settings, and I'll change it to performance beta, apply, confirm, and once again restart. And as you can see, I'm now running at 220 to 30 FPS, which is a huge improvement. And once changed visually, well, not too much. It's actually really crazy what kind of performance you get from that simple setting over there, and it's definitely something worth trying out, as I mentioned previously. If you don't like how the game looks or you experience other issues, do note that it is currently still experimental and of course not something you have to play with. You may want to go back to DirectX 11 or 12, depending on what setup you have and what issues you're experiencing. Quickly, something I forgot about while recording this video is there's a couple of options that you can change in your configuration file that you can't change in the in-game graphics options. Hold start and press R to bring up this run dialog box, and inside of here type percentage, local app data percentage, and hit enter. Upon doing so, you should see a new file browser here. If you don't see any files or the window didn't open, head across to view at the very top and make sure hidden items is checked. Upon doing so, inside of here, you should be able to navigate into a folder called Fortnite Game. Inside of here, open up saved, then config, Windows client, and you'll find game user settings.ini. Open this with your favorite text editor. I'll just be using Notepad here. Inside of here, we can click at the very top and hit Ctrl F. We will be searching for B show grass and hit enter. Then we'll be taken down to B show grass equals false. Make sure that this is set to false and you should have grass disabled. I'm pretty sure this is disabled here as I'm running the performance mode, and this is obviously something they've turned off. Then click anywhere, hit Ctrl F, and we'll be searching for B disable mouse and hit enter. Then we should see B disable mouse acceleration set to false. Set this to true with a capital T to fully disable mouse acceleration that you could be experiencing while playing the game. Usually mouse acceleration is bad and it stops you hitting shots as you'd hope. If you're used to playing with, it may be an unwelcome change to play without. Then hit Ctrl F once again and search for SG dot shading and hit enter. And it'll be taken all the way down to SG shading quality. As you can see, the performance option set this to 0, but you can have this set to 1 or something low down like that. Usually, this will be set to about 3 or so, as far as I understand, as you can't change this in-game. And of course, if you like, you can go through the other options here, though most of these you can customize in-game. Then we can close out of this here, click Save, and close out of our browser. Once again, you'll find a guide for Windows 10, 11, and NVIDIA optimization, the brand new NIS technology from NVIDIA, and other related guides down below. Thank you all for watching this rather long video. My name's been taken over here for Troubleshoot. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.